This is Sam Stone with CBR here at New York Comic Con 2022 with the cast of Star Trek Prodigy, back with new episodes for the second half of the first season on October 27th on Paramount+. Guys, thanks for taking the time to speak with me.
Thanks for having us.
Kate, it strikes me that you have a very unique acting challenge with this because we've seen Janeway before for 7 years. Now we're seeing a completely different Janeway with hologram Janeway. You get the rare opportunity for a second chance at a first impression. How is it developing this alternate take on Janeway?
Second, third, and fourth chances. There are more than one iterations of Janeway in Star Trek Prodigy. Or haven't you watched it?
You got me.
Sam, speak the truth.
I swear I've seen it, and if we're talking about it, I mean, there's also Vice Admiral Janeway in the mix.
That's right.
So how is it doing these two very different, or I guess 3 or 4 or 5 different versions of Janeway that we see throughout the show?
There are 19 different versions of Janeway in this show.
It's great. I'm delighted. It's a privilege to reach this audience of children who have been long overlooked by the franchise. And I don't know why, because it is a child's mind that would embrace this whole philosophy. And I think that they have. I think that already there's a fan base developing in an extraordinary way because it's cross-generational. These little children are talking to their mothers who've watched Voyager or Next Gen and their mothers who have watched the original series. And the whole conversation then takes on an entirely new meaning. It's wonderful.
In terms of that younger perspective, Brett, I mean, as Dahl, we've seen quite the arc. We ask a lot of the younger characters on the show, and they face a severe amount of consequences when they make mistakes. How is it trading like his trajectory over the course of these first 10 episodes and into these next 10?
Yeah, I feel like his arc he has a long way still to go. I've loved his arc so much. I think that, he's grown so much as a person and just as a teammate and as a leader. But as he dives more into his self-discovery, I think there's even further for him to go. And there are things that he's not even sort of faced within himself that are going to come to a head in this next chapter of the season. And we'll see if he's up for the challenge, but there's going to be lots more questions, lots more to do, and lots more sort of things to face and overcome.
Jameela.
Hello.
As Ensign Ascencia, she's the best and brightest among the junior officers. She's fit for command material.
Naturally.
How was it finding the voice for this Starfleet officer as she works under Janeway and the rest of the crew?
It's really fun, and she's she comes straight out the gate as a very kind of strong character. She knows who she is. She's not afraid to stand up for her decisions, and I feel as though she's going to ruffle feathers in ways that no one will be able to predict, which is quite exciting. But the very last I can say on that, otherwise I will be killed.
Yeah. These are transparent windows for a reason. Kate, the last we saw of Vice Admiral Janeway, she was trading barbs with Patrick Stewart in Star Trek Nemesis. There's a lot of life in that character that we don't see when we see her again 10 episodes into Prodigy. As an actor, do you like to stick with what's on the page purely, or do you like to formulate your own backstory of what has happened in between?
Well, that's all part of it, isn't it? I mean, that's the job of the actor. But obviously, sticking to the page means honoring the writing, which I do impeccably because I really honor the writer. And as for the rest, I have to fill that in. That's my job. It's no fun without that imaginative component. So, of course, I do that as well.
What are some of the joys that you have in doing that in terms of bringing your own, this character that you've known for years and years?
Yeah. Well, there's a freedom in the recording booth that there doesn't exist on a soundstage. On a set, it's rigorous, demanding, and exacting, and you have to really hit your mark and cut, print, go out. But in the booth, I get to do what I like. It's completely collaborative, and I can ask for 5, 6, 7 takes. I can give them 10 choices if I like, and they're always game. The Hageman brothers, who are wonderful. It's all about leadership, and they are marvelous leaders. Not to mention Alex Kurtzman, who is the helmsman. So I'm enjoying it enormously. It's great fun, and knowing that this is going into living rooms all over the world, into little minds that are going to take the trip of their lives.
And you do a fantastic job, by the way, because it's not always easy for that stuff to translate across when it's just your voice. And I'd say that you're probably the person in the show that I get to interact with the most, like the voice rather. And as a long-time Star Trek fan, I got literal chills the first time I heard your voice, because I just didn't expect that in the booth, and it was incredibly powerful. And for you to be that powerful even without the camera in front of you is just very cool and very inspiring. But I will
hope this
climb out of your
softens
ass
that a
now.
This is what it all comes down to in Star Trek
He's so
Prodigy.
cute.
Yeah.
Murph.
Yeah, the show is stolen from all of us by this thing.
Period.
I
Thank
was
you for that.
well, Brett, with this, when the show started, Dahl didn't want to do anything Starfleet. He was on the run.
Yes.
And now here we are. He's trying to get to Starfleet. We know that it's a little more complicated with what's in the Protostar without maybe going into spoilers.
Yeah.
How is it trajectorying to somebody that started out very much like Peter Pan, never wanting to grow up,
Yeah.
and then finding his North Star?
It's hard with Dal because there's lots to unpack about Dal. He was sold as a child to a labor colony in.
It's such an easy start, like privileged.
I mean,
spoon up the
yeah,
bum.
I think sometimes it's
Yeah.
hard. It's easy to look at Dal and see him as sort of this sort of spoiled person who just wanted his own freedom. But you know, for most of your adolescent life, you can't speak to the people around you or the other. You have no form of reference to know who you are or what you look like, and we know what it's like to see things on screen and not necessarily see ourselves. So sometimes there's this desire to build isolation around that and to just sort of like enjoy your freedom. And responsibility can be scary for somebody like that when they've come from slave labor. So I think for Dal, it's the process of becoming empathetic about other people and learning to enjoy what it is to be, I say humanity, but it's really, just to be alive and what it means to connect to other beings and people and to know your place in a team. And that work doesn't have to mean authority and there's freedom in everything and there's freedom and responsibility as well. So I think for Dal, it's been just a giant learning curve. And again, it's going to continue, but I have like a soft spot for him when it comes to like, how he got to where he is, because he's had a rough life,
I also feel really excited for the fact that the children who are growing up now are growing up, especially because of social media, one of the most divided, like openly divided times where it's everywhere you look.
Yep.
And so to have all these kids and these young people and then also these adults all from different places coming together, putting all their differences aside, having come up from completely different environments, different languages, learning how to communicate with each other, and then use their teamwork to get to a better place is something that I always think is important to have shown in storytelling, and I think Star Trek has a legacy of that.
Totally.
To that point, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, like you mentioned being a lifelong Star Trek fan.
Mm-hmm.
This year, you've not only got to join Star Trek, you've got to join the MCU.
And DC.
And DC.
I
How
know.
is it joining?
It's my nerd EGOT.
What is it about taking on roles like Titania or like Ascencia that you just find thrilling, both as a performer and a fan?
I think there is something about me that casting directors can see, that I'm talented at playing a pain in the ass. I don't know what it is exactly. If you look at my Twitter, perhaps it's more apparent to you. But, I'm very drawn to playing a pain in the ass. Like, I think that the complexity of what makes someone so troubled is fascinating to me. And I think that I seek to understand the people that we most need to change. And I think that's the only way we're going to change them, is if we understand them. And so I like playing them. And also I am a pain in the ass, aren't I? So it's fun. And I enjoy playing outside of, I think so many of these shows, as fantastical as they are and how extraordinary this look, and this show, looks so stunning. But I think they are the spoonful of sugar that helps the medicine go down. We're able to tell stories about race, class, sex, fatherhood, with Cisco. Like, we've just had so many opportunities throughout the decades to be able to tell so many real, relatable stories. I was a very awkward child who looked up to Data, and saw Data trying to learn how to feel as I was trying to learn how to feel. There have been so many different characters who look completely different to us, who we were all able to relate to. And so I think that it's cool to be able to not have the message be thrust down someone's throat, to have it in this world of like fun and fantasy and fiction, but also to be able to find a very real message within that.
I think on that humanistic note, that's our time. This is Sam Stone with CBR at New York Comic Con 2022 with the cast of Star Trek Prodigy, back with new episodes on Paramount Plus on October 27th. Guys, thanks again for taking the time.
Thanks. Can we stay here? This is the best part of Comic Con.